Okay, good evening members. Welcome to this digital meeting of Council being held via Microsoft Teams on Tuesday the 16th of November 2021. Members, Dave Street will confirm the proceedings for the meeting. Thank you. Mr. Street.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And Lodai. Good evening, members. We'll not be live streaming this evening's meeting. However, it will be recorded and made available to view via the Council's website. Except for discussions involving confidential or exempt items. Therefore, the images and audio of those individuals present and or speaking will be publicly available to all via the recording on the Council's website at www.caerphilly.gov.uk. If members lose connection during the live meeting, please make every effort to reconnect. However, the meeting will continue as long as it remains quorate. Democratic Services staff are available and will be able to assist you to reconnect if necessary. I wish to also remind everyone that the Mayor has discretion to terminate or suspend recording if, in her opinion, continuing to do so would prejudice the proceedings or that continued recording might infringe the rights of any individual. The Mayor also has the right to remove persons from the remote meeting if that is necessary. All members should have checked their headphones, microphones and IT kit before the meeting commenced. I wish to remind members and officers to ensure that all microphones have been muted. Group leaders, deputy leaders, cabinet members and key officers have been asked to leave their cameras on. All other members and officers, please turn your cameras off unless making representations. Members will need to unmute their microphones and turn on their cameras when called to speak by the Mayor. Votes this evening will be taken using Microsoft Forms. When a vote is required, the monitoring officer will direct members to open the show confirmation, where the form will appear, and then click on the yes, no or abstain, and then click to submit vote. The names and votes cast will be recorded and published on our website following the meeting. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Street. So on to the agenda. Item 1, apologies for absence. Members, we have an apology for absence from Mrs. Christina Harry, Chief Executive. And
I'm done now because I'm going live. Sorry.
As detailed within the meeting conversation chat, if members are aware of any apologies not listed, please add them to the chat or notify Democratic Services. Thank you.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, Councillor John Scriven cannot get into the meeting. If someone could assist, please.
Certainly, Councillor Whittle, if somebody from Committee Services could just help Councillor Scriven.
Thank you. I'll let him know now. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, on to item 2. I've got somebody's hand up. Hold on a second. Councillor Hussey, can I help you, please?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm not sure if Councillor Johnson have joined the meeting, but he was running a bit late. I'm on my phone, so I'll be keeping my camera off, but when I be speaking, I will just put my microphone on. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Councillor Hussey. Okay, on to item 2, Mayor's announcements. I'll keep this nice and short. It was my pleasure to represent Caerphilly County Borough Council with Armed Forces Champion, Councillor Alan Higgs, at the Reserve Forces and Cadets annual briefing, and it was great to see some of our residents of the borough being recognised for their commitment to the reserves and the cadets. I've also attended the unveiling of the Morgan Jones display board in Bargoed Park, and I was also privileged to attend the Sengennydd Colliery Disaster Memorial Service with the leader, and we paid tribute to those who were lost and heard the performances from the school children that were also present. I've attended the first Cray Scouts presentation evening this month and was really impressed with all the young people and leaders who were present. I was also able to present some of them with their hard-earned Duke of Edinburgh awards. I was honoured to lay wreaths at the remembrance services in Derry, Bargoed and Caerphilly over the weekend. And finally, I would like to wish Councillor Adrian Hussey and Councillor Julian Simmons a very happy birthday this month, as they both celebrate milestone birthdays. And that's it from me for the moment. So moving on to item 3, it is to receive petitions under the rule of procedure. Councillor Etheridge, I understand that you have a petition to present. Can you please turn on your camera and microphone?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The petition is is signed by 280 residents, almost 100 residents from Blackwood, regarding their request for a children's playground, a small park, to take part of the field at Plasmow Community Centre. I appreciate budgets are tight in regard this, and we've already, my colleague Councillor Farina Childs, have already brought the attention of this petition to Blackwood Town Council, and we will be lobbying them for a proportion of the funding. But the play area will not take the whole of the field. It will basically be for young nursery and primary school children on the Highfields estate. And as I said, Madam Mayor, 280 signatures. The petition will be provided to officers this week in paper format. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Etheridge. I accept your petition. Item 4, presentations of awards. Members, I'm very pleased to confirm that we have one award to make this evening, and I call on Councillor Nigel George to introduce tonight's award. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, I am pleased to announce that Dilys Harris, a Senior Trading Standards Officer within the Public Protection Division of Caerphilly County Borough Council, has been named in the 221 Trading Standards Heroes. Every year, the Chartered Trading Standards Institute chooses an officer who has demonstrated exceptional dedication to consumer protection, who has gone above and beyond their duty, and whose commitment to ensuring vital work has been completed. Dilys and her team are responsible for a wide variety of functions, including food standards. Over the last year, Dilys and her colleagues in the Greater Gwent Food Group have worked tirelessly to develop a multilingual allergen awareness resource for food businesses to help protect the estimated 2 million people living with a diagnosed allergy in the UK. The resources were launched in September and are available on the internet to watch and download free of charge for all food business operators, their employees and the local authorities all over the UK. In recognition of her work on this resource, Dilys was presented with the award at the ceremony in London last month. Madam Mayor, I am sure you'd like to join me in congratulating Dilys on her award, which is a tremendous accolade, and to commend the resources and the impact it will have on the food businesses and those living with food allergies. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor George. Congratulations, Dilys. Would you like to say a few words? You don't have to, if you don't want to.
I'd just like to say thank you very much. It's a huge honour, which was a complete and utter shock and a surprise, albeit a lovely one. I'm very proud of the work that I and my colleagues have done, and it's been the fact that I work for an authority that encourages creativity and innovation, and with the support of my managers. So it's a huge thank you to them too. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yep.
Well, that's fantastic. Thank you very much.
Yeah, well done, Dilys. Well done.
Thank you.
Well done.
Thank you very much. You're welcome to stay with us, Dilys, if you want to, but by all means, you don't have to.
Can we have some training on the clapping, please? I've seen it in front of people. I don't know how to do it. So well done, Dilys. Councillor Bob Owen.
Well done.
So, sorry for the intervention.
No problem. No problem. Okay, moving on to item 5 is declarations of interest. Councillors and officers are reminded of their personal responsibility to declare any personal or prejudicial interest in respect of any item of business on this agenda in accordance with the Local Government Act 2000, the Council's Constitution and the Code of Conduct for both councillors and officers. Members, please use the hands up function to indicate if you have any such declarations. And I can see Councillor Colin Aylesbury has got his hand raised. Councillor Aylesbury, please.
Sorry. Yes, I have to declare an interest in agenda item 12, which is the notice of motion for day centres. It's a personal and prejudicial declaration, so I'll be leaving the meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Aylesbury. Mr. Tranter, do you have anything you want to add at this point?
No, Madam Mayor. Just thanks for that, Councillor Aylesbury. So I'll note that declaration of interest. It will be noted in the minutes, and we'll also note that in your log of declarations that you make at committee meetings. So thank you very much for that. Just a reminder to all members, you will be aware of this, but if there are any interests that become apparent to you during the course of this evening's meeting, then please put up your hand and declare as you wish. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Tranter. There are no other hands raised, so I will move on to item 6 and 7, which is to approve and sign the following minutes. Members, we will take the minutes for accuracy, and then I will ask someone to move and second them as a true account. So first of all, we will go to the meeting of council held on the 5th of October. Just bear with me, I'm just scrolling through to get the right page up. So that's the council held on the 5th of October for 2021 for accuracy. So page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, page 5, page 6, page 7, page 8, page 9, page 10, page 11, page 12, page 13, page 14, page 15, and page 16. Are there any comments or corrections? No. So if we move on to the special council held on the 14th of October 2021 for accuracy first. So that's page 17, page 18, page 19, and page 20. Okay, there are. Okay. So
Move, Chair.
Thank you. I'm not sure whose voice that was, but thank you. Thank you.
Second, Chair.
And that was Councillor Sararis, I believe, yes?
Yes, it is.
Thank you very much. Are you happy to move both sets of minutes, gentlemen?
I am.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you. So having been moved and seconded, Mr. Tranter, could I ask you to take us to the vote, please?
Yes, certainly, Madam Mayor. Members, there'll be a voting poll in front of you any second. If you could please vote to either accept, not accept, or abstain on the minutes. Thank you very much. It's just in front of you now.
Mr. Tranter, it's Councillor Jeremiah. I haven't got the poll there, but I'm for in this vote.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Councillor Jeremiah. We'll make a note of that. Any other members having difficulty? Okay.
Is Councillor replaying for it? Can I report? Can I vote for, please?
Yes, certainly, Councillor Forward. We've made a note of that. And Councillor Hardacre.
Mr. Tranter.
Yes.
Mr. Tranter, Councillor has here.
Yes.
The poll come up, but I'm not sure if I actually voted. But,
okay.
I'm in favour of the meetings.
Okay, thank you very much. So we'll just check whether you voted or not at the conclusion of this evening's meeting, and we'll make a note of that. So, Madam Mayor, the minutes.
Mr. Tranter, I'm not sure if Councillor Hardacre voted then or not.
I've made a note of that. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hardacre. So, Madam Mayor, the minutes are carried. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tranter. Okay, moving on to item 8. It's to receive and to answer questions received under the Rule of Procedure 10.2. Councillor Simmons, can you please put your camera and microphone on and ask your question? Thank you.
Thank you. To ask the Leader of the Council what sanctions are available to the Leader, the Cabinet and Council where public servants in the employ of Caerphilly County Borough Council are shown to have acted outside the approved policy strategy of the authority.
Thank you, Councillor Simmons. Leader, can we have your response, please?
Yeah, thank you ever so much, Mayor. The Council, as the employer of staff, has agreed policies and procedures in place to investigate members of staff in their conduct or behaviour is deemed to necessitate such action. The sanction available to the Council will depend upon the findings of the disciplinary process but could range from no action to dismissal. Should you or any other elected member have any specific examples of officers acting outside approved policies or strategies of the authority, you should forward your response or your concerns to Lynn Donovan, Head of People Services. That's my response, Mayor.
Thank you, Leader. Councillor Simmons, do you have a supplementary question, please?
Yes, if you don't mind.
Thank you. Yeah.
I'd like to thank the Leader for that. I'm concerned about that despite spending millions on policy, strategy and planning, public servants in the employ of Caerphilly can ignore the Council's planning policy and strategy. I'm referring to planning where public servants can recommend for acceptance areas clearly outside the settlement boundary of our land use strategy document, i.e. the LDP, which is a statutory development policy. I'm also concerned that the declared carbon neutrality strategy of Caerphilly has been, or the first 6 houses built by this council for decades, has been outfitted with gas boilers. And I wondered where this leaves the Code of Conduct for Public Service in Caerphilly Council regarding policy, strategy and planning. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Simmons. Leader, please.
I wasn't sure what the question was there. It seemed to be a bit of a statement around 2 items, so it wasn't a question. So if I can ask Councillor Simmons to put that in writing to me, and I will get a response to him. Thank you ever so much, Mayor.
Thank you, Leader. Thank you, Councillor Simmons. Thank you.
No, thanks.
Item 9 is to receive and to answer questions received under the Rule of Procedure 10.4. Councillor Bazina, I understand that you have a question for the Cabinet Member. Can you please put your camera and microphone on and ask your question, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Apologies, my internet has been playing up today, so hopefully you can hear me, but I'm sure you won't miss seeing me, so apologies for that. Can I please ask the Deputy Leader and Cabinet Member for Infrastructure and Property to tell us what steps this Council is going to take to promote public transport? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bazina. Councillor Pritchard, can we have your response, please?
Yes, thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Bazina, for your question. So from the outset, I'd like to stress that as Cabinet Member for Infrastructure, I'm very keen to promote public transport as a viable option for residents across the borough. I've got quite some experience boarding buses for most of my life, so having only gained a driving licence around about 18 months ago, travelling by public transport was how I got about my day-to-day business. So I'm therefore aware of the pros and the cons of public transport as things stand. There have been some significant challenges ahead of us. Bus travel has been severely affected by the COVID-19 pandemic, and with passenger numbers plummeting and the requirement for social distancing and additional cleansing requirements, adding further burdens and costs on operators. Whilst the Council and Welsh Government have stepped in to support the sector with substantial financial assistance, officers from the Council sit on the South East Wales Bus Funding Group, The number of passengers currently travelling remains low and is approximately 60% of the pre-pandemic figures. In addition to the difficulties as a result of the pandemic, the bus industry is currently experiencing a critical shortfall of drivers, which is resulting in many short notice service cancellations and full service withdrawals across the South East Wales region. As a result of both these issues, the bus network has not returned to the levels enjoyed by residents prior to March 2020. Sickness absence is also an issue facing operators in the region. Throughout the pandemic, the Council's Integrated Transport Unit has endeavoured to keep public transport information updated as much and as quickly as possible, even against a backdrop of reduced changing bus frequencies and the administered whatever financial support has been available for the industry from Welsh Government as quickly as possible. But since becoming Cabinet Member for Infrastructure, I've been Caerphilly's member on the Regional Transport Authority. The authority is one of the 10 local authorities in the Cardiff Capital Region that meets to discuss integrated transport across the region. My role is to put Caerphilly's case forward, and this is what I've done to date, and this is what I intend to keep doing. In July of this year, the leader sent a letter to Lee Waters MS, Deputy Minister for Climate Change, in relation to the Welsh Government's commitment to lift the ban on local authorities running municipal bus companies during this Senedd term. We both support legislation to pave the way for more opportunities for public transport to be taken back into public ownership, as we believe public transport run locally will provide greater stability for the industry. In recent months, I've been engaged in constructive talks with the Unpaid Health Board, Transport for Wales, bus operators, officers of the Council and the Senedd member for Caerphilly, who approached me in my capacity to discuss potential bus services to the Grange University Hospital. These talks are still at the preliminary stage, but Transport for Wales have supplied myself and all parties around the table an indicative map they're considering. In order to advance these talks further meetings are in the pipeline. It's my job as the Cabinet Member for Infrastructure to work to ensure all avenues are pursued, so I will update members further. In spite of the challenges we face as a local authority, I'm keen that we consider supportive, innovative schemes that will promote bus travel. We're therefore considering a temporary fares reduction scheme to increase long-term patronage. Going forward, we want to link any potential scheme with supporting our town centres and to improve our climate change obligations. I'm aware that for many residents, travelling for public transport is not even presently considered. I want to help to change this view by promoting schemes that will offer residents a reason to board public transport. I strongly believe it's the role of local members to support public transport workers when it comes to campaigns involving the improving of pay terms and conditions. Investment in the workforce will help to retain staff and encourage new employees to enter the industry. Investment in the workforce will strengthen the viability and long-term future for public transport. I therefore strongly welcome the news this afternoon that bus drivers operating out of Caerphilly Borough have won their campaign for £10.50 an hour, backdated to April, and protecting terms and conditions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Pritchard. Councillor Etheridge, I understand that you have a question for the Cabinet Member. Can you please put your camera and microphone on and ask your question? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I don't intend to read out the question in full. That's all I will say is on the 11th of November, I had a letter from the Health Board which referred to the actual discussions, preliminary discussions between Councillor Pritchard and Councillor Heaven David, and in regard a potential bus service from Caerphilly town to the Grange Hospital, which I welcomed. What prompted the question is I feel that everyone in every part of the county borough, all their locations should be treated the same. So that's why I've tabled a question to Councillor Pritchard, and would he please actually give a report back to Scrutiny when further details are available. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Etheridge. Councillor Pritchard, please.
Well, thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Etheridge, for your question. I can confirm that in my role as Cabinet Member for Infrastructure, I have been engaged in constructive talks with the Unpaid Health Board, Transport for Wales, bus operators, officers of the Council and the Senedd member of Caerphilly, who approached me in my Cabinet capacity to discuss potential bus services to the Grange University Hospital. These talks are still at a preliminary stage, but Transport for Wales have supplied myself and all parties around the table an indicative map they are considering. Whilst discussions are still at an early stage, I can confirm that a potential cross-valley route through Nelson, Ystrad Mynach, Blackwood, Pontnant Newbridge and Crumlin is being considered. I'm in discussions with all parties about the potential new service, reducing travelling times for passengers boarding the service. I can inform members today that I've been in discussions with Transport for Wales regarding the current bus services. And for members' attention, I can confirm that the number 29 Newport bus runs from Friars Walk in Newport to the Grange University Hospital. The estimated journey time of this service is 26 minutes. Notable bus services from within Caerphilly Borough to Newport include the number 50, number 56 and 151. But the current situation is not something I'm content with, so in order to advance talks further, more meetings are in the pipeline. I recognise that public transport to the Grange University Hospital is an issue that some members have also raised in the press and have actively supported. As is usually the case with any proposed changes, many discussions take place prior to announcements being made. So it's my role as Cabinet Member for Infrastructure to work to ensure that all avenues are pursued, so I will keep members updated. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Pritchard. Councillor Skivens, you've got your hand raised. Do you have a problem? I am under the impression I'm not allowed to let you ask any further questions of Councillor Pritchard.
If we're not allowed to ask questions, then you'll have to carry on.
Thank you. Okay, so moving on to item 10, which is the notice of motion, the review of council constitution and member protocol. Councillor Etheridge, could you please put your cameras and microphone on and present your notice of motion as stated in the council papers for our consideration, please? Thank you.
Thank you. The notice of motion is asking really, Madam Mayor and members, for a working party to look at the delegated powers of this authority. I just would like to make just a few points, and I will be brief. I'd like Mr. Tranter to give his views on the call-in process. Does he feel if a call-in is rejected by himself, there should be some form of a appeals procedure? So actually, in the interest of natural justice, so members can make representations if the monitoring officer refuses the call-in. The second point, I do feel that there should be questions on any statement which the leader makes. The reason I say that, I feel that the questions could be put in prior to the actual statement if the leader told the leaders of the opposition. So there wouldn't be any potential of trying to catch the leader out, because she would have the written questions beforehand. Because I feel making a statement at council and the ruling, and I appreciate it's in the constitution, that no questions would be taken, leads to a lot of rumours, speculation, comments on Facebook, where if we had that in place, Madam Mayor, I think, that would be a sort of firm direction. And really, I'd like to ask the members to please support a working party to look at the constitution. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Etheridge. Mr. Tranter, do you want to come in at that point, or shall I? At that? Yeah. Okay. Can I? Do we have a second for the motion, please, members?
Yes, I'll second. James Simmons.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you, Councillor Simmons. So having been moved and seconded, the debate is now in order. Members, if you have any comments, please indicate now using the hands up button. Please turn on your camera and microphone when called and lower your hand again by clicking on the hands up button when you've finished making your representations. Thank you, members. Okay, there are no. Thank you, Councillor Morgan.
Sorry, Madam Mayor.
That's okay.
Yeah, I'm very interested to talk on this. I certainly won't be supporting Councillor Etheridge's notice of motion. There was a bit of preamble there, which didn't, I don't know if it did quite relate to the notice of motion as written. It sounds like he's asking for wholesale change to be looked at from a document which has served us well for many years. And over those many years, he's had many opportunities to feed into changes to the Constitution as things come forward frequently with changes, and he can apply for changes at any time. He's talking about the decision-making process as if he takes no part in that, or as if there are not enough chances. This motion just doesn't offer any further democracy. I mean, we already have pre-decision scrutiny, which Councillor Etheridge can take part in. There's 5 to 6 scrutiny committees. There's a forward work programme that he can put forward his own ideas. There are other committees such as the Planning Committee. I know that tonight he has a notice of motion regarding a planning decision on the agenda tonight. Well, rather than addressing planning decisions after they are made, perhaps he could sit on the Planning Committee and help with the making of those difficult decisions. We already have the opportunity of the call-in decisions. We already have the opportunity, he already has the opportunity to address Cabinet should he wish. And we already have the opportunity, to make a case at Council and on top of the notices of motion, which is another element of democracy. So I don't really know why he's got a problem with the decision-making processes here at the Council. And as I say, I believe that wholesale change to a document which has evolved over many years is a good idea. So I'll certainly be voting against this notice of motion tonight, and would urge other councillors to turn it down as well. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Morgan. Councillor Owen, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Sorry, am I on? Yeah. I don't agree with anything that Councillor Morgan has just said. He wasn't asking for wholesale changes. It is to do with specifics, i.e. the delegated powers of officers. We talked about planning. Yes, there is an issue on planning coming up. Clearly an issue which there's been major mistakes made. As far as I'm concerned, there's a planning issue in Risca. There's been major mistakes made. But we seem to have to lump it based on sometimes officers playing politics. I try to get a lot of answers on a particular instance in Risca. Still haven't received those answers. I asked for different bits and pieces, never got any of that. Yet it goes through planning. And then when mistakes are made, there doesn't seem to be any recourse to going back and changing things, because the decisions are then classed as totally legal, made by a planning committee, etc. So I don't believe, I'm not in agreement with Councillor Morgan at all there. But within this report that went to scrutiny, I referenced 10.5, where it says that members would advise that the monitoring officers of Wales are currently in the process of putting together a draft constitution to be adopted by the 22 councils of Wales. So clearly, we're not in step, and I don't mean it just us. All councils are not in step. We need to get something standardised, and this is one area where we could get the standardisation. So I'm quite interested in where we're going with the process of a draft constitution, which apparently there is no timeline on it, but we need to know where we're going with that. And perhaps if we're all singing from the same hymn sheet across all 22 councillors, perhaps it'll be better than individual councils and individual councillors and monitoring officers making changes, so we're all out of sync. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. Councillor Dix, please.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I totally agree with Councillor Owen's comments there. I think it's always best to look at things and never have a closed mind to reviewing stuff, especially the Constitution. It's a vital document, and as Councillor Owens pointed out, there's 22 authorities, no doubt 22 different kinds of constitutions. Is what happens is with any organisation or any body, and especially in the public sector, when you've got a ruling group in for so long, the Constitution, they control the Constitution, they control what's in it, and inevitably that can corrupt the Constitution. And I think it's always important that we review that, because when people got power for so long, you know, absolute power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely, as they say. Not that I'm making any accusations there, but I'm just saying it's always best to review these things. I don't think that anybody could say we've got a perfect constitution as it stands, and we ignore any attempts to look at it, because we can always learn from looking at stuff, and we can grow as a council then and be more open and inclusive. Simply brushing things off and saying everything is perfect is, I find, quite worrying and arrogant at the same time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dix. Councillor Graham Simmons, please.
Thank you. Well, the tighter we draw the lines around democratic challenge, surely we must be in danger of strangling the democratic principle themselves. I fail to understand why anybody should be afraid of questions. The answers possibly you should be afraid of, but certainly not the question. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Simmons. Councillor Mike Adams, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I apologise for calling you chair earlier. I obviously owed something in your pot, so bill me for it. Yeah, I'm looking now at 10.5, which we've just been talking about. All the councils in Wales looking to get together for a draft constitution. But that, of course, if it could be agreed in some far distant future, probably, because they'll be arguing themselves about it. And I'm sure when it's put to all the councils as well, we will be arguing individually for those of us who are here to face up to that decision about that doesn't suit us, it doesn't suit them, and we'll be arguing about it. A draft constitution, in theory, is probably out of the question. In practice, it's something good to aim for, isn't it? And we should keep on doing that. And in the meantime, of course, we have to look at our constitution whenever new legislative forces come upon us, and we have to make sure that those are reflected. Yeah, okay. Questions should always be there. They don't have to be all within the constitution all the time, because we have the scrutiny committees to look at that and answer for. So I don't think we need to go on root and branch clear out of some of the things that some other members don't like. And to make accusations about departments have got things wrong is really going a bit too far. And the members know who I mean and why I mean that. So I will be supporting Councillor Morgan as well. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Adams. Councillor Martin James, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, I have to support this motion. I always thought that the Constitution was an evolving document that followed stages, that moved on with process. Now, unless we look at challenge at the things that are in there that are not working and put them right, then we'll never get something that's fit for 2021 or 2022. It's something that should be looked at, but I find it ironic here that the ruling group here don't want change on it, yet people who are in opposition. So I'm just wondering, you know, where the steer is coming from to the ruling group on how they vote, you know, and how they are whipped. This is supposed to be open and transparent as a council. And if we are actually directing members how to vote, then I think that's certainly something that should be challenged. So I'll be 100% for supporting Councillor Kevin Etheridge. Thank you, Mayor, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor James. Councillor Pritchard, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Councillor Simmons made a point of us sort of not wanting any scrutiny. Well, in terms of the questions which the opposition are more than entitled to, and I've answered one today, and the leader's has answered many in her time as leader. When I was first elected in 2012, and I think this was with the duration of the first term, my term, if a council wanted to ask a question, they could ask the question, and he'd be tabled when we used to go to the council chamber. There was no opportunity for the leader or the cabinet member to stand up and make a speech on that. And there was certainly no opportunity for the leader to answer a supplementary question. We've also got our meetings broadcasted. That's more scrutiny on us. So I just remind Councillor Simmons that far be it us looking to get away from scrutiny, the leader has to answer a supplementary if she wishes to, and any cabinet member has to come in front of the camera to answer. So it's a nonsense, frankly, what Councillor Simmons is alleging.
Thank you, Councillor Pritchard. Leader, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I just really want to go back to 10.5 because it quite clearly states here that the monitoring officers of Wales are looking into a draft constitution to be adopted. So that would suggest that things are in train in terms of looking at that. It also, you know, and I absolutely need to draw everyone's attention to the fact that we're doing the corporate reviews. And one of those corporate reviews is about decision making. So there, it gives us all the opportunity to contribute to that in the right and proper manner, instead of having another task and finish group where we already have the structures in place to deal with this change. So, you know, this is important in the sense that we all understand that the Constitution is an evolving document. Absolutely get that 100%. But what you're calling for here is not right and proper. I certainly won't be supporting it because at the end of the day, we know that there's a draft constitution being looked at by 22 authorities. And not only that, the corporate reviews are going to look at decision making. So if that isn't enough for members to get involved in, I don't know what is. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. I've got Councillor Owen, Councillor Graham Simmons and Councillor Morgan's disappeared off my screen. But you've already spoken, councillors, so under our constitution, I'm not going to allow you to speak again. I'm going to call Councillor Gary Johnson, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and my apologies if I was running a bit late, just getting from work, so please accept my apologies for that. Madam Mayor, I wasn't planning and speaking on this, and I can tell Martin James, or Councillor Martin James, that I'm not whipped. I haven't been told how to vote tonight, but I will be voting against. And a simple reason is people like Martin James that makes me angry. When he comes out with stupid comments like he just comes out with, the people of Caerphilly Borough voted in all us Labour councillors so that we would run this council.
Please. Stupid comments, that is abuse.
Councillor Owen, thank you. Can you temper your comments, please, Councillor Johnson?
My apologies, Madam Mayor. But the simple fact is they seem to think that they can make whatever comments that they want. The people of this borough voted us in as a Labour Party. If we vote as a Labour Party, why would that be a surprise to anyone? This is what we are voting for. You know, I'm not voting because of some comments on Facebook. I do not see a problem with the way the democratic system is of asking and answering the questions as we've got them. And if the people of the borough disagree, they will elect all the independents and Plaid back in and let them change the constitution. But what I would believe what would be happening as soon as they get in, oh no, well, we don't really need to change it now because there's not an election about to happen. So I will be voting against, and it's nothing to do with being whipped. It's because I don't believe this is the right time for this at the minute.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Councillor Mann, please.
Just a couple of quick points. We keep hearing about the Constitution being looked at. I believe it has been, this working party of monitoring officers has been going on for quite some time. Maybe Mr. Tranter could explain how long they've been going and if there's an end goal in sight. Could I also just comment on the last contribution? Councillor Johnson said voting as a Labour Party. Well, in scrutiny, it has been emphasised to us on many occasions that we vote as individuals and we don't vote with any party whip or party line. So I do wonder about this comment.
Point of order, Madam Mayor. Point of order, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I did not mention scrutiny once. I mentioned as we are here as a council and we were elected into this council as Labour. So if we vote during the council meeting as a Labour group, we're not breaching any rules. This is not a scrutiny meeting. So it's not Councillor Mann. And can you tell me once where I have went with the whip on scrutiny meetings because you're on the same one as me?
Councillor Mann, please.
If I misunderstood that, I apologise, Mayor, but it did say voting as a Labour Party, and he wasn't that specific as to exactly which meetings were being referred to.
Madam Mayor, point of order, Madam Mayor. He is just trying to insult people. That's all they're trying to do, is wind people up tonight, Plaid. And it's a simple fact. We are sat here in a council meeting. I'm not in a scrutiny meeting. So what other meeting is Councillor Mann referring to? Because this is a council meeting.
Okay, at that point, I'm going to interject and please
Point of
ask
order,
you.
Madam Mayor, as the proposer of the notice of motion, in order to, can we now move to the vote, please? Can I ask that we move to the vote?
Certainly, Councillor Etheridge. I was just about to ask everybody to temper their language and be and respect one another. Thank you.
I did ask a question, Mr. Tranter, Mayor.
You did, and Mr. Tranter has indicated to me that when we go to the vote, he will answer or just before we go to the vote, that he will answer any questions asked of him. So should we will move to the.
Thank you.
Can I pose a question to Mr. Tranter also on the draft conduct?
You have already spoken, Councillor Simmons. I've got one hand left, which is Councillor Gordon, who hasn't spoken. I'm going to call him and then I'm going to hand over to Mr. Tranter for the vote. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I just find it strange after listening to the debate why Councillor Etheridge and Councillor Simmons want a cross-party working party, Labour, all the parties involved in the working party. There's a cross-party working party tomorrow on the appointments panel, and they both refuse to sit on it. Perhaps there again, we've got to make a decision.
No comment.
Perhaps we could get questions asked.
Thank you both. Can I remind you, please, that I am chair and you are now speaking out of turn, and I'm going to hand this over to Mr. Tranter. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, just before we go to the vote, members, a couple of points were raised during that debate. The first one that I'm going to pick up is the call-in procedure. And Councillor Etheridge asked me whether or not there should be an appeal procedure. It's ironic in some ways. That's what Parliament was deciding last week, wasn't it? And look what happened there. But there is no appeals procedure within the Constitution. Call-in is firmly with me. It is my decision. It's one of the reasons why you employ me. It's in the Scrutiny Committee procedure rules. The grounds for call-in, and just to remind members, those grounds are that it conflicts with Council's policy framework, or it conflicts with Council's approved budget, that it has been made without regard to a material fact or information, or without proper consultation, which in the opinion of the members making the request would lead to a different decision being made by the executive. A couple of times during my time here at Caerphilly, I have refused a call-in request, and basically my decision has been based on the fact that pre-decision scrutiny has taken place. That's been a big factor that I've weighed up in deciding whether or not to allow a call-in. The Constitution at the moment says that it's my call, so frankly, I'm only doing my job. Moving on now to a couple of questions about the Constitution and the new draft model Constitution that the Monitoring Officers of Wales are currently preparing. So that work is ongoing. And in an ideal world and with a fair wind, I want the Council at least to have the opportunity to adopt a new model Constitution at the end of this Council. If that can't be done, we'll go across to the new Council. It'll be a decision for the new Council. But a new model Constitution is being developed. It will look, I don't want to disappoint anyone, remarkably similar to our current Constitution, but it will be updated to take account of new provisions within the Local Government and Elections Act. And one of the differences will be that a summary of the Constitution needs to be prepared. So we'll have a summary. So any changes, any legislative changes will be inbuilt to this new model Constitution, which it is hoped that the 22 councils of Wales will adopt, but I have no doubt that there will be regional variances between the councils on the final constitution document that they adopt. And my final point is that it will be a decision of the council to adopt a new constitution if that's what it wants to do. So I hope that's been useful, members, in answering some of the questions that you've raised. We'll now go to the vote, if I may. And the vote, of course, is on Councillor Etheridge's notice of motion. There's a poll in front of you, so can you please vote yes if you're in favour of the notice of motion, to form a cross-party working group to look at the Constitution and other matters. No if you're against it, abstain if you want to abstain. So I'll give you 90 seconds to vote on that. Thank you, members. If there are any members having difficulty voting, can you please let me know and I'll make a note of how you want to vote.
Is Mr. Tranter?
Yeah, can we go one at a time, please? So Councillor Hussey, yep.
Yeah, against.
Against. Thank you, Councillor Hussey. Can I have the next member, please?
Councillor Fussell.
Thank you, Councillor Fussell.
Yeah, I'll vote for, just to be awkward. Thanks.
Okay. Okay, Councillor Fussell, that's 4. Any other members? Councillor Hardacre, how would you wish to vote? Thank you, Councillor Hardacre. And finally, any other last call? Okay, so Madam Mayor, the notice of motion is lost. 15, let me just do this, 16 for, 36 against and 2 abstentions. So the notice of motion is lost. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chanter. Moving on to item 11 is a notice of motion for the 9 Mile Point planning decision. Councillor Etheridge, could you please put your camera and microphone on and present your notice of motion as stated in the agenda for the council's consideration, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The notice of motion, as it says, it asks for a full investigation, and I would like to give notice now, please. I would like to call for a recorded vote, and I request that the council appoint an independent investigator to look at this matter and recommend a public inquiry into this. The reason is, Madam Mayor, is it right and proper for an internal investigation officer prior to and during writing the report to have meetings with parties, for example, Howell and NRW, on the 27th of September and on the 6th of October, where no minutes of these meetings are actually taken? The meetings were held, whether by Teams or whether by site meetings. They were held with local elected members, officers of the council, and the the internal investigation officer who actually wrote the report. Now, surely, in the interests of openness and transparency, there should have been minutes taken of these meetings. I then, on the 2nd of November, I submitted a Freedom of Information request to Caerphilly Council, asking for who attended the meetings, the names, and what went on. That came back, and I queried the information, Madam Mayor. Today, I had an email from the FOI people.
Councillor Etheridge, sorry to interrupt, but is this actually stated in your notice of motion?
No.
Well, Madam Mayor, it's all around the investigation.
It is, but as I stated at the beginning of the top of this agenda item, you just need to state what is in your motion, so then we can debate this at a later point this evening. Thank you.
Just want to confirm then, Madam Mayor, your ruling is we can't go into the details of the investigation.
Point of order, Madam Mayor. Councillor Etheridge, you are aware, surely. You know, we can have this debate. Come on, just read the motion out and then we can proceed. Surely that is the case.
That's fine. That's okay then.
Thank you both.
We, the undersigned elected members of the authority, request a full investigation into the Hasram planning decision. The investigation should include within its remit any advice given by planning officers, the planning committee, any relevant information provided to members. We request the investigation also considers any discussions or information provided. The investigation should also detail any potential costs, details on the decision that no environmental impact assessment was required, and why members and residents will refuse discussion and communication prior to a judicial review. Finally, I'd like to move that there is a full independent investigator appointed with a public inquiry, and I would like to move that and ask for a recorded vote, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Councillor James. You took the words right out of my mouth. Perhaps at this moment, Mr. Chanter could explain the recorded vote, please. Thank you.
Yes, Madam Mayor. Perhaps if you allow now members to speak on the notice of motion, to have the debate, and then at the conclusion of that debate, if there are 10 members who want a recorded vote, perhaps we could signal that via a hands up function, and then we can decide whether or not there are 10 members. If there are 10 members, we'll have a recorded vote on the notice of motion. Okay.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tranter. So the first hand showing is Councillor Andrew Whitcomb, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I consider this motion is defeating the purpose for which it was written. We've had a comprehensive internal review of this matter, and the motion was put before the Scrutiny Committee, relevant Scrutiny Committee, and was lost. And I'd also like to ask Councillor Exridge to explain why he's become interested in this matter, as he didn't seem to be before. I understand now that this matter has been already submitted to the local government ombudsman. As that body is the independent arbiter for matters of public discourse, then surely we should await the decision of the ombudsman before we progress any further. We already, as it's been submitted to the ombudsman, it is already an independent investigation. So why should we try and duplicate something which is already in process? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Whitcomb. Councillor Hussey, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I will share at the Scrutiny Committee that Mr. Councillor Hetheridge brought this motion through. He had 5 minutes to present this motion, and Mr. Platt also had 5 minutes in support. It went to the vote after a very good debate, and this motion was defeated. So I just like to put that out. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Hussey. Councillor Wyn David, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've got a question to Mr. Tranter. I sat on this matter originally 2 years ago, along with Councillor Adams, who chaired it, and I was Vice Chairman of the Planning Committee, and we presided on it, we spoke on it. All these matters that are now appearing were discussed at the time, and we decided to approve the application because we didn't accept these matters. So is it right that we vote on this because this is a motion that is seeking to investigate us for the way we voted? So should we be voting tonight on this matter? That's the question to Mr. Tranter. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor David. Mr. Tranter, do you want to respond to that at this point?
Yeah, certainly, Madam Mayor. Yes, Councillor David, I think you can take part in the debate. I don't think that just because you were a member of the Planning Committee, the former Council's Planning Committee, that is, back in 2015, that should in any way negate or stop you, prevent you from taking part in this debate. I don't think it's a matter of having a closed mind. Indeed, you can. I think you could actually add to the debate by explaining possibly why the Planning Committee made the decision it did. And without putting words in your mouth, I assume that was done because the officer recommendation was to grant planning permission on the basis that this development was fully in keeping with the planning policies that were in place at that time. So it's fine for you to continue in the debate, Councillor David.
Thank you, Mr. Tranter.
Thank you both. Councillor Mike Adams, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Wyn, I have to put you right on some of your statement there. It was, as Mr. Trant has just reminded us, in 2015 in the last council. Who was the chair of Planning Committee before 2017? Councillor David Carter. And as he had done for so many times before us on that night, he ran the meeting very, very accurately and correctly. And there were no questions that were asked by the members on that evening that weren't proper, deliberate and investigative questions of the presenting officer. And we'd both been to the site visit, I think, on the Monday previous to that. There were questions asked. I'm sure there was a question asked about why wasn't there an EIA, and that was appropriately answered by the presenting officer. And so that Madam Mayor, I've already spoken about at the scrutiny meeting previously to this. There are a number of items, of course, then I was able to question Dr. Platt. And one of those was about the difference between waste recovery and disposal. There's so much written in all of the regulations that you can take it because of the way you've disposed for that either way. And that continues today. And we've had, and we will have more information regarding the fact that waste disposal, it is not. There's no chemical process involved, no heating of it. It's all dry waste from, generally from offices, I would assume. And it just needs to be chopped up and baled, ready for a future disposal by somebody else, not in Hasbro. That's just one. I asked the question of Mr. Platt, did he believe that the new extension of 12 months had become obsolete? And because Hasbro had already started the process before their 5 years run out. And he, unfortunately for him, had to agree that they were right to do so, had every right to do so. And of course, then I reminded him that, was he aware of this his 6-week decision period on whether or not to ask for a judicial review? And again, he agreed with me. I think I could have asked many more questions, which I stated on the night, and they would have been the kind of questions he would have found it very difficult to honestly argue against. And then when I saw the letter that Councillor Etheridge had in his possession over that weekend, I think, from Dr. Platt, I could only agree almost wholeheartedly and universally with the findings of Richard Edmonds. Almost everything that he was summarising in a paragraph at the end of one page or another, I said, that's what I was thinking. So I'm not looking for Richard Edmonds' job, but we were very much in partnership after that. I was going to ask Councillor Etheridge a question about his participation in the Sahawi Valley meetings that they'd had. But he probably doesn't want to answer that. It could only have been a yes or no question. I hope he didn't
answer anything.
Councillor Adams,
okay.
can you?
Thanks.
Thank you. You finished? Yeah. Thank you very much. Councillor Martin James, please.
Oh, thank you again, Madam Mayor. I just think we've got to look at our constitution, what we sign up for. We sign up for openness and transparency. Now, I think we haven't got a very good record, unfortunately, in Caerphilly. And if you talk to your constituents and that, they haven't got a lot of faith, really, in Caerphilly at the moment, and in the way we operate and the way we do things. I
Point
feel
of order, madam. We're not talking about the Constitution. That was the last notice of motion. This is a different issue to the Constitution, which Mr. James
I was thinking that, Councillor Morgan, but I was hoping that Councillor James was coming on to this item.
Yes, I was.
Bringing his question to an end. Yeah, thank you.
If I hadn't been interrupted, I would have come on to it by now. All I'm saying is look at the Nolan principles. That's all I'm saying, where we need openness and transparency. Have a look what independent means. It means that it's not investigated by our own authority. It's and I feel we have nothing to lose, and we can be open and transparent, and whatever the outcome is, it can be set up for everyone. So I just believe in openness and transparency. We should have independent review, which is independent. If anything happens in the police force, another police force takes it over. So, that's my view on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor James. Councillor Bob Owen, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I was, pardon me, I was on that scrutiny committee some weeks back, and it was a big open debate. The vote was lost, yes, but where we tend to generally get a lost vote, there's a lot of dissension as to I'm not going to be voting for, because there was no dissension whatsoever. Councillor Adams asked a lot of questions and got a lot of answers, and it was a good open debate. But to me, again, as elected members, we are reliant on the system through the constitution, through our offices, codes of conduct, etc. And people make mistakes. Now, in the last one, you wouldn't let me come back in when Councillor Adams sort of came back and said about getting things wrong. We all get things wrong, officers and ourselves, clearly, in our day-to-day life and whatever else. And in getting things wrong costs money, yet we then are not prepared to sort of stand up and be counted. And even as only as far back as part is 10.3 on this report, in April 2021, when legal services had to confirm that it was a waste disposal installation, when we were still claiming that it was an industrial estate. So clearly, we need, as elected members, we need to go back to our constituents and say, yes, we've made mistakes. We made mistakes with the senior officers' pay, but nobody said sorry to the constituencies for £5 million. Yet we made mistakes, officers or councillors. So to me, things like this is about conscience. And are you individually happy to say that we've investigated it? And I'm not taking anything away from the investigation, because there's one has happened. But as Councillor James has just said, internally, you are not independent. So we need to go external and get to the bottom. And if the investigation says we made mistakes, we need to hold our hand up and we need to apologise. But we don't want to do that. We don't want to scrutinise officers. We just want to let it continue and continue. And that cannot keep happening, because when we're making mistakes, it's costing us money, all the legal costs of the recent judicial review, etc. So we need to be honest with ourselves, and that's about conscience to me. And I will be voting for this motion, and I urge people to vote as I did in that scrutiny committee. There was no dissension in that meeting, yet 8 people then went and voted against it. Well, I'm telling you what I'm voting. You vote with your conscience. Hopefully we'll get the 10 that we need, and we can see where people vote, and also the constituents will be able to see. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. Councillor Graham Simmons, please.
Thank you. If that lump in the carpet gets much bigger, we won't be able to see the telly. Is there any more you intend to sweep under there? Just a question, like, for anyone to answer. Back to Martin's question. Openness, this is an official, a statutory code requirement. Openness in the dissemination of information and decision-making should be the norm in relevant authorities. So why do we have no minutes of the meeting that was held? Why? Well, just why is there no minutes of the meeting that was held? As Councillor Owen just said, no. It took how many years, Bob? 2-3 years for the notice to come out that it should have carried an environmental impact assessment. I mean, well, there is a good side to this. We hope to capture 2 seats in Undersea and Cwmfelin on the basis of this. So if there is a good point, it's that. But there is so many people down there that are genuinely concerned for their health, and more importantly, the health of young children. I've not seen anything about what comes out of that factory. Nothing.
Now we know what's behind this.
A voice from the corner. Yeah, this is about people and their quality of lives. That's what's behind it.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Simmons. I think we need to move on. Councillor Pritchard, please.
Well, thank you, Mayor. And Councillor Simmons, you've just made my speech for me. You've just said exactly what this motion is all about. And it's all about attacking our leader of council. That's all it's about. You want to keep this in the public domain day after day after day. And you've just said it now, live. This is what it's all about. To win those 2 seats for whoever, the independents. That's what it's all about. It'll be all on Facebook later today because a recorded vote's going to take place. And let me just tell council a few of the things that I've been looking into recently, and you won't be surprised. But in terms of the petition that keeps on getting mentioned, 1,384 names apparently. Well, the online version of the petition, because I've seen it because it's been delivered to the council, have a guess what percentage of those residents, if you want to call them that, actually live in the Untitled ward. Well, I tell you now, 68% of those residents who signed that online petition don't live in the Untitled ward. They live many places, some of which live in Northern England and Scotland. So what a load of nonsense that is about this online petition. An absolute load of nonsense that is. And the validity of the petition, that's been raised with me as well. Because residents have come to me who signed what they believe to be an attendance sheet, and I've got the emails, attendance sheet. Now there's loads of pieces of paper sent to the council officers supposedly supporting this petition. But the residents approached me and said they believed to sign what they believed was an attendance sheet, not the petition. And I'm aware that several members have actually asked for their names to be removed from that petition. So yet again, if anybody wants to raise 1,384 names, they're talking absolute nonsense because we've got it in front of us now. So this, as Councillor Graham Simmons has just said, is all about attacking the leader. And I'm going to say right here, right now, because what I said in the Caerphilly Observer, I stand by 100%. The leader is getting attacked unnecessarily day after day after day. Now leave it alone. This is all what it's about. And I'll leave it there, Chair, because I'm angry. I've known the leader now for a number of years. And since I've been elected as deputy leader, I've worked very closely with her. Now let me tell you something now. We're all human beings. Now let's be treated with respect. I'll leave it there, Chair.
Did the leader show respect to Kevin Etheridge when she approached him?
Councillor Simmons, please, you've not got your hand.
Die by the sword.
Councillor Simmons.
It's all games. They don't care about people.
Right. Moving on. Councillor Mann, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm not going to follow what's just happened, but I'm referring back to a statement made by Councillor Adams, I'm sure in good faith, about, I think, dry recyclables. The problem is that things don't always stay as they started out. Within shouting distance of where I'm sitting now, there's a facility on the Dufferin estate, which started off as a recycling facility for inert waste, building material, that sort of thing. Somewhere along the line, it was changed to general waste by the NRW, who didn't bother to inform anyone, well, local councillors, the council itself, or anyone else. And we've had exactly the same issue with a skip hire company where NRW again decided that they would change the permitted capacity of that particular operation, massively increase it, again without any consultation, even with the authority as a highways authority. They just carried on, they did it. So sadly, whatever something starts out as, you could not guarantee for many years in the future that it won't change radically. So that is one of the dangers I would be aware of. If the thing starts, that it might end up as something entirely different to what it started off as. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Mann. Councillor Adams, you've already spoken on this item, so I'm going to go straight over to the leader. Councillor Marsden, please.
Okay, will you call me back if there's an opportunity, Mayor?
Councillor Adams, you've already spoken, so yeah. we need to move on with this item. And like I said, I'm going straight to the leader. Thank you.
Other members have mentioned my name. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for that. And thank you for some of the supportive comments here tonight. Thank you. I just need to say that I made in a statement, did I not, in council, requesting that we had we carry out a review, and it was to go through our complaints procedure, which is standard in the council, which deals with many councillor complaints that we have. I need to emphasise that went straight to stage 2, and now it can go to the independent ombudsman. That is key, members. That is absolutely key. That is a body that upholds and looks after people's interests when it comes to decisions that are made. I urge you all to consider this matter, because the independent public ombudsman is the right and proper route for this. If something has been done wrong, then it will be discovered. The right process was followed in completing the complaint procedure. I need to stress that is something that we have, that is our policy, and that is something that is right and proper. I need to emphasise this, because things are getting a little bit blurred here. So again, stage 1, stage 2 complaints procedure, and if then you're not satisfied as an individual, then you have every right to go to the ombudsman. And beyond that, whatever happens, happens. It is independent. I cannot emphasise that enough, okay? That is an important characteristic of that body. Please take that on board, people.
Thank you, Leader. Councillor Etheridge, as you were the mover for this motion, do you have anything you want to say before we go to the vote, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to move to the vote and ask for 10 people that it's recorded, and the motion is that we have an independent investigator and we have a public inquiry. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Etheridge. I'll hand over to Mr. Tranter, who will now take us to the vote. Thank you.
Yes, thanks, Madam Mayor. Just before members vote on whether or not we have a recorded vote, members just should be aware that in our system of voting, okay, members of the public know exactly how you vote. We publish the voting records after every meeting. So not only a council meeting, every scrutiny meeting, every planning committee meeting, all members of the public know exactly how a member votes. So look, it's a matter for you members whether or not you have a recorded vote. In order to have a recorded vote, I'll need 10 to show their hands, please. But I'm just making the point that that information will come into the public domain in any event, regardless of whether you have a recorded vote or not. But if you wish to have a recorded vote, could I now ask you to show your hands? And I can see them going up, so I need 10 hands, please.
Madam Mayor, just before I did put my hand up, but it was to ask Rob to answer the question.
Move to the vote. Point of order, we move to the vote.
Yeah.
We have moved to the vote. I do apologise. I was very...
We move to the vote.
If you do not wish to show your hands in the vote for the recorded vote, please lower your hands now.
Okay. So we've got 10 members, Madam Mayor, who want a recorded vote. So I'm going to read out all members' names, please, one at a time. You're voting on whether or not you agree with Councillor Etheridge's notice of motion, which in summary is to have some form of public inquiry into the planning decision on 9 Mile Point. So when I call your name, can I ask you to say for, against or abstain, please?
Could I just ask a single question on procedure, which I wanted to ask earlier, Madam Mayor?
Is it anything to do with the...
It's to do with the recorded vote, yes.
We move to the vote.
I move that the matter be...
Move to the vote.
Mr. Tranter.
Excuse me, hold on a second. If we need to have a discussion, or not a discussion, a question answered about the procedure, can Mr. Tranter please answer that question? Thank you. Councillor Morgan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just understand that Mr. Tranter just said that each and every vote that we take in council and in scrutiny committee meetings is open, transparent and available to be seen by members of the public. using our website. So is going to a recorded vote where we now have to say which way we are voting, and that's fine. We've got nothing to hide there. But is this
the numbers?
Please hold on a
wait, sorry, Madam Mayor. I would just like to say that is this just another further layer of bureaucracy? Is this just is this offering us any more openness and transparency, or is this really just simply wasting council time? Thank you, Mr. Tranter.
We've had 10 people.
Yeah, I'll just answer that pretty simply, Councillor Morgan. It's within the Constitution. 10 members can ask for a recorded vote, regardless of us now printing every vote that every committee takes and what the individual member votes. So it is perfectly acceptable to ask for a recorded vote. 10 members have supported it. So I'm going to get on now with a recorded vote, if I may. So, Councillor Michael Adams, please. For, against, abstain.
Against.
Thank you. Councillor Aldworth.
Against.
Councillor Andrews.
Against.
Councillor Angel.
Absent.
He's ill, Mr. Tranter. He's not well.
Thank you very much, Martin. Councillor John Bevan. Apologies as well. Someone's just whispered in my ear. Councillor Phil Bevan.
Apologies.
Thank you very much. Councillor Carmen Bazina. I think Councillor Bazina is here.
Against.
Thank you. Councillor Bishop. For. Councillor Collis.
Against.
Thank you. Councillor Cook.
Against.
Councillor Cushing.
Absent.
Apologies. Thank you. Councillor Cuss.
I'm not voting for his political games. Against.
Councillor David.
For the same reason, against.
Councillor Mike Davis.
For.
Councillor Tudor Davis. Councillor Tudor Davis.
He was going for his booster jab this afternoon.
Okay.
Mr. Tranter.
I'll put it down as apologies then. Thank you. Councillor Dawson. Councillor Dawson. Apologies then. Councillor Dix.
For the motion.
Thank you. Councillor Aylesbury.
For the motion.
Councillor Etheridge.
For.
Councillor Evans.
Against.
Councillor Farina Childs.
For.
Councillor Christine Forehead. Christine Forehead. Apologies. Councillor Elaine Forehead. Councillor Elaine Forehead, I think you spoke to me earlier on.
She did, but she was having connection difficulties, Mr. Tranter.
I'll put those apologies then. Councillor Fussell.
He's absent. Apologies.
Councillor Fussell, okay. You've just spoken. Councillor Gay.
Against.
Sorry, Mr. Tranter, my microphone had been switched off. But for.
That's Councillor Fussell, is it?
Yes, it is. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you. No trouble. Councillor Gale.
Against.
Thank you. Councillor George.
Against.
Councillor Gordon.
Against.
Councillor Goff.
For.
Councillor Hardacre. Against. Councillor Harding.
Against.
Councillor Havard.
Against.
Councillor Higgs.
Against.
Against. Councillor Hussey.
Against.
Councillor Martin James.
For.
Councillor Vincent James.
Against.
Thank you. Councillor Jeremiah.
Against.
Councillor Johnston.
Against the games.
Councillor Kirby.
Against.
Councillor Ariana Leonard. Ariana Leonard. Apologies for the looks of it. Councillor Philippa Leonard.
For.
4. Councillor Philippa Leonard, 4. Councillor Mann.
4.
Councillor Marsden.
Against.
Councillor Miles.
Against.
Councillor Sean Morgan.
Against.
Councillor Bob Owen.
4.
Councillor Teresa Parry.
For.
Councillor Lisa Phipps.
Against.
Councillor Denver Priest.
Against.
Councillor Diane Price. Councillor Price. Yeah, I'll put that then as apologies. Councillor Pritchard.
Against.
Councillor Ridgewell.
He was another one going for his booster jab, Mr. Tranter.
Okay, apologies then, thank you. Councillor John Roberts.
O Blaid y Cynnig for the motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Diolch. Councillor Sorales.
Against.
Councillor Sargent. Apologies. Councillor Scriven.
I think I seen a message to say that he was leaving, Mr. Tranter.
Okay. Councillor Scriven. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Councillor Graham Simmons.
Excuse me, Councillor Skivins here.
Is that Skivins or Scriven?
Skivins here.
Yeah, okay. I haven't asked for you yet, Councillor Scrivens.
Yeah,
Skivins, rather. Sorry, confusing myself. Councillor Simmons, Graham Simmons. Thank you very much. There we are. Councillor Skivins, Stephen Skivins.
The anticipation for.
Marvellous. Thank you. Thank you very much. Councillor Stenner.
Against the motion.
Councillor Taylor. John Taylor. Councillor Taylor, apologies then, must be. Thank you. Councillor Whitcomb.
Against.
Thank you. Councillor Whiting.
Against.
Councillor Whittle.
For the motion.
Thank you. Councillor Walter Williams.
Against.
And finally, Councillor Zaplatininski, please.
Against.
Thank you very much. So I'll just add these up.
Madam Mayor, could I clarify that on my vote I was here, but unfortunately I hadn't turned it on. Councillor Tudor Davis.
So Councillor Davis, yes.
Is against.
You are against. So I'll just make a note of that. Okay.
I apologise, but.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. I'll just add these up now, members. Sorry, I do apologise. On my sheet, I've got Tom Williams as giving his apologies. But apparently he's here and I can see him. So apologies, Councillor Williams. Would you like to tell me how you wish to vote?
Against.
Thank you very much. Apologies for that. Right, I'll just add these up, members. Madam Mayor, the vote is for the notice of motion on 9 Mile Point. There were 17 members for, 36 against, and no abstentions. So the notice of motion is lost. It's lost. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, members.
Thank you, Mr. Tranter. So we'll move. Councillor Hussey, before we move on, you've got your hand raised.
Just like to give my apologies now, Madam Chair. Just been called in for my Christmas dinner.
Enjoy, Councillor Hussey. Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of the meeting. Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Okay, we'll move on to item 12, which is the notice of motion for day centres. So, Councillor Mann, could you present your notice of motion as stated in the agenda for the Council's consideration, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I assume you'd like this read out.
Yes, please.
To help the meeting, we went through various forms of motion in the Scrutiny Committee, but I'll read out the motion as contained on page 36, Mayor, which was the combined motion. In view of significant public concern about suggested changes to the Council's daycare services, the Plaid Cymru Group calls on the Council to return to providing a full service of hours at day centres, pending an extensive review. We also call on CCBC not to withdraw previous transport arrangements for service users. The proposals as they stand have caused immense distress and anxiety for carers and some of the most vulnerable members of our society, which is having a detrimental effect on their mental health and well-being. We are concerned that the existing consultation exercise has not gone out to all carers and those vulnerable individuals they care for. A better system of communication with service users and families is badly needed, so that they are a proper part of the decision-making process. In the meantime, there should be a moratorium on any changes taking place for at least 12 months, with a final decision on any changes being considered by the full Council. In view of those recent concerns raised by users and carers at a public meeting, and a petition of over 1,000 names, and the worry, distress, anxiety, upset and stress caused for many in our communities, we are pleased that the authorities have recognised that the original consultation exercise was withdrawn, and a more effective, robust exercise will be undertaken by an independent person with all stakeholders, users, carers and families. We therefore call for all parties to work together, and in order to work in a partnership, a working group is set up with specific terms of reference to monitor and evaluate progress to ensure fairness and consistency. The group will therefore be chaired by the Cabinet member, councillors from the Scrutiny, limited numbers 2 to 3, carers and users, officers from social services and a union representative. A report will be produced with recommendations for evaluation and consideration with options going forward to ensuring regular engagement with all parties. I therefore move, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Mann. Is there a second for Councillor Mann's motion, please?
Yes, I accept Councillor Mann's motion.
That was Councillor Paddy, I think?
Yes.
Thank you very much. So having been moved and seconded, the debate is now in order. Members, if you have any comments, please indicate now using the hands up button. Please turn your camera and microphone on when called and lower your hand by clicking again on the hands up button when you have finished making your representations. Thank you, members. Councillor Jamie Pritchard, please.
Madam Mayor, do I speak to my own motion?
Yes, you do, Councillor Mann, yes.
Thank you. Yeah, I I'll try not to prolong this too much. We had quite a thorough debate in scrutiny, but I think there are some points which maybe need emphasising. The motion was submitted in order to respond to the serious concerns expressed by a large number of carers looking after vulnerable family members. I believe that everyone understands the need to respond to the pandemic, but the cause of concern, as I understand it, is a failure to move in a meaningful way towards restoring the services previously available. I've been told of vulnerable adults who are now receiving just 3 hours per week, 3 hours, when they previously had 5 days provision. I believe that this applies in many cases, and in fact I had a conversation this morning, Madam Mayor, with a person who was in exactly that position. 3 hours compared with 5 days is not exactly a decent proportion. And there are carers, I understand there are some carers who have either already placed their relatives into assisted living or are seriously looking at it because of the inability to cope in the present situation. I think the regional consultations had a good airing, and we did welcome the plans to do a proper consultation. The despair with carers really is about the lack of moving back to provision of meaningful hours, and again some of the substitute services that are being put in place. I've read very favourable comments on some of these substitute services, but sadly I've also read the opposite, and my understanding is that there are a lot of people in this situation who very much rely on routine and something they've done for many years. It's very difficult for them to change, and I do wonder what consideration was given before they were just asked to change. It is, I don't apologise for repeating this, people out there who are caring, it is a 24-hour commitment, 24/7 by 365 days per year. It is not something that most of us would even, well, we can't, I don't think we can even contemplate the sort of commitment and the stress that that is contained in that sort of situation. It is all about the fact that the daycare is just not there, and the well, the lack of any sort of reasonable promise to bring it back in a decent proportion. I do recognise, Mayor, the great difficulties that officers are working under, and I would not say that this is not a simple situation, but I think we need to hold out some hope for carers, and they need assurances that we are doing everything we can as an authority to move back to a situation where the people who are being cared for have got a decent prospect of having some of these hours restored. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Councillor Mann. Councillor Pritchard, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just a point of clarification. In 5.1, Councillor Mann read almost the entire motion out, but he did leave out two sentences, or one sentence, which is the consultation seems to be window dressing with social service officers determined to drive through
Madam Mayor,
changes,
could I butt in?
whatever the short and long term impact on carers and their family members. Can I just confirm with Councillor Mann he's now withdrawn that element of the motion?
Well, the fact I read out the amended motion without that in, I would have thought is confirmation that it's withdrawn.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you both. Councillor Leonard, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Could I ask Councillor Mann, with the infection rates high at the moment, is Councillor Mann happy to break the COVID regulations and the COVID risk assessments that have been put in place to safeguard the service users and therefore endangering their safety? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Leonard. Do you want to come back on that now, Councillor Mann?
I would not suggest breaking COVID regulations. All these things have to be done in a safe way. But as I said earlier, I think an assurance that we are working towards that situation would go down very well with the people that we are providing a service for.
Thank you. Councillor Mark Evans, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and good evening. Can Councillor Mann clear up in his opinion why Caerphilly County Borough Council should provide a full service of hours at all its day centres when other local authorities such as Carmarthenshire, Gwynedd, Ceredigion, for instance, have continued rightly to follow Welsh Government guidance and reopened on a reduced basis? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Evans. Councillor Mann, do you want to take all the questions and then come back, or do you want to come back individually?
Well, I noticed that Councillor Evans didn't mention any authorities that have actually gone a lot further towards restoring services.
Thank you. Oh, sorry, I was on mute then. Councillor Cook, sorry.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Good evening, members. I urge you all not to support Councillor Mann's notice of motion, as it's irresponsible for the council to return to providing a full service of hours at day centres at this current time when COVID is spreading throughout our communities. And we would be ignoring Welsh Government COVID regulations and breaking COVID risk assessments, putting service users at risk. For members' information, before the pandemic, one of our day centres was attended by 60 users, along with 4 staff in 4 rooms. And that is around 20 persons per room. COVID risk assessments carried out by health and safety officers have now reduced this number to 4 persons per room, which would be a maximum of 16 persons per day if we opened all the rooms. Hence, sessions have been introduced to support as many people as possible, prioritised by assessment and care management. I have met and spoken with families of day centre users and explained that we have no intention of closing day centres. We are continuing to follow Welsh Government guidance in relation to COVID-19, which is being mirrored across other local authorities who are offering a reduced day service provision with a focus on community options. And I might add, we are providing 1,577 hours a week in day services. Councillor Mann's motion was not passed by Social Services Scrutiny members on the 1st November, and even independent non-political members of Scrutiny voiced their concerns at reopening day centres at full hours due to the risk posed by COVID. We should all be working together to support our most vulnerable and not trying to score cheap political points. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Cook. Councillor Bazina, please.
Thank you very much. I'd like to ask Councillor Mann and also the other signatories of the motion whether or not they've carried out a risk assessment to determine whether it's safe for users who were shielding to access day centres. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bazina. Councillor Mann, please.
It is not a member's function to carry out risk assessment, I don't think, Mayor. And could I respond to the previous allegation? This is not a political motion. We are acting on behalf of carers, many of whom have directly complained to a lot of members. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Etheridge, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm disappointed to you tonight about the political comments. Councillor Mann has already stated, and I quote, "I would not advocate breaking COVID regulations." You've already stated that verbally. I appreciate, the motion does say, and I've got major concerns about every day care centre being open. I think that's not realistic with the number of cases. But you have said that you wouldn't break COVID regulations, and I do feel the motion, whilst I agree with the motion, I think it's wrongly worded. I've made this point before. Councillor Mann have asked for an assurance, but I stress it's all about the users and the carers. It's not about politics, it's about them. And we cannot open every day care centre with the COVID the way it is. Staff, it's just unacceptable. But as he's given a verbal assurance that he would not breach COVID regulations, I will be supporting it. But I would like Mr. Street to give his comments where Councillor Mann asked for an assurance. I'm sure all social services staff are doing their very best, but we must all work together on this. And I would like Councillor Mann just to confirm that it's not his intention that every day centre would be open. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Etheridge. Councillor Mann?
Thank you, Mayor. Obviously, it's not my decision whether the day centres open or not, but I don't see the problem in opening the day centres, providing they can be open on a safe basis.
Thank you. Councillor Mike Adams, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Colin. It was very good of you to admit earlier to Councillor Pritchard that you'd removed that one sentence about any forcing or accusing social service staff being determined to push through all of these changes. So it's good that it's gone. The fact that it was there in the first place, can I ask you to please apologise to all of those members of staff and anyone reading it that it was there in the first place?
It would probably better had it not been there, Mike. So
yeah,
I will say that to you. It, the reason the reason I withdrew it was that it may be better had it not been there.
It was the wrong thing to do. Thanks, Colin.
Sorry.
Thank you both. Councillor Steve Skibbins, please.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple of things. I sit on Social Services Scrutiny Committee, and there was no intention to make this a political issue. Let's get that point out initially. However, we have to respond to complaints and serve the community. Where we have in excess of 1,000 people affected by some of these decisions, then I believe that we should all sit up and take notice and show some empathy, which I'm not hearing across the meeting tonight. Colin Mann has indicated the impact on families and carers and vulnerable people of these decisions. Now, these decisions around COVID, and then I've also been told about refurbishment of day centres. I've also been told about shortages in staff, are all management issues over a very protracted period of time. And let's not lose sight, there is a legal requirement to consult and work in a partnership method. Yet again, that has not happened, and the current consultation exercise over whatever the future changes are intended to be has failed and has not happened. So I think we need to readdress this balance and actually think about the vulnerable people that are out there caring for individuals, family members on a continuous basis, and feeling that this authority has no intention to support them. And it's not just about day centres, it's about the consultation and partnership working, it's about challenges on their transport. So there's a theme running here, and I think we need to take a step back and think about how we serve our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Skibbins. Councillor Sean Morgan, please.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I realise that a sentence there has been withdrawn, but the language being used, I think it could be quite upsetting for people who work within the system in such difficult circumstances. I'm just wondering if there's these accusations sort of being put, and if they could possibly be. If there would possibly be an officer out there who would like to give the officer version or the officer clarity on this notice of motion and the accusations contained within.
Thank you, Councillor Morgan. Mr. Street, do you want to come in at this point, or do you want to come in at some other point?
I'll be
No?
guided by you, Madam Mayor.
Yeah, you please come in now. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Morgan. As I said, you know, the statements are there. Councillor Skimmons is right. This had a very healthy debate at the Social Services Scrutiny Committee. I'm too unpleased that the phraseology that was in the original notice of motion has changed, and I thank Councillor Mann for that. We really do appreciate the level of angst out there amongst the people who use the services and their families. Nobody is doing this out of spite. Nobody is doing this out of incompetence. It's being done because we continue to respond to the single biggest public health emergency that we've ever had in our lifetime. It hasn't gone away. We might think it's gone away. And I've been challenged around how can people go and watch Wales in the Arms Park or the Principality Stadium amongst 74,000 people, but you can't allow 40 people into a day centre, because you can't, because those people are extremely vulnerable, and the consequences of those individuals contracting COVID in many cases would be fatal. We are not keeping these centres closed because we want them to be closed. We want them as open as quickly as we can. I know Joe Williams is on a call. Believe you me, if you could see the effort that had gone in from Joe and her staff into maintaining those services from the first outbreak to now, which is now 20 months that they've had to do this, it has been quite staggering and quite moving. We are committed to opening these centres as soon as is practically possible, but we will not do that until it is safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Street.
Thank you, Mr. Street. I was going to leave my comments until the end of the debate, but I'm going to echo some of what Mr. Street said. Members, as you know, I am a nurse. I am currently working on a COVID ward. We are trying to protect our most vulnerable adults by not reopening our day centres fully, because I see when I go into work on a shift the outcomes of these vulnerable adults catching COVID. And believe you me, it is not pleasant. It has severely affected my mental health in the last couple of weeks for what I have witnessed. I'll call the next speaker, Councillor James.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for everything you do in Ysbyty Fawr. I was taken back then by Councillor Cook's saying that it's being kicked around as a political football. I think I've got to draw the attention of one person I've been dealing with who has been sectioned twice this year, whereas when he was going to the day centre, he was a perfectly healthy young man with learning disabilities. His mother can't cope. He's having breakdowns all the time. So I can assure you, from where I'm coming from, I can see the need of these people. And he was having 2 hours a week. And he's been sectioned twice. Now, if you think that's fair on the young man or the young man's family, I think you would retract those words. It's not a political football. This is about people. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor James. Councillor Johnson, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Firstly, Madam Mayor, I'm going to take the politics out of this because I must say I've heard Councillor Mann for quite a while now speak about this, and I do also have the same. I've been asked similar questions from residents of my own and some of the staff as well that worked in local centres. But the problem I have with this, Madam Mayor, I'm looking at it from a health and safety point of view, and maybe Mr. Street could answer me this. You know, as a trade unionist, I'm going around companies and I'm seeing if there's regulations in place and they breach regulations, then we hold them to account. So I would like to know if Caerphilly Council agreed this motion tonight and it was due and you started opening up these centres to get everyone back in there, and something happened to one of our residents because of this. Now, we would be going against Welsh Government advice. We would be going against our own health and safety risk assessments. Can Mr. Street tell me, as a council, for us breaking government advice and our own health and safety assessments, would we be liable for that injury, even worse, death, because of COVID? Could you answer me that, please?
I mean, there are specific guidance that relates to health and social care. And I think one of the problems we face at the moment, Councillor Johnson, is where we talk about level 0 within our more general communities. That isn't the case in health and social care facilities. It's anything but level 0. The risk assessments and the guidance are there for a reason. They're there for us to protect people. If we failed in our duty to protect people, then clearly the council would be liable.
So what you're saying then, just so I know before I cast my vote, that if we force you to go ahead and do this, you know, by supporting this motion, then the council could be liable.
Yes, I'd like to preempt that, if I may. I'm the statutory director of social services for the local authority.
Yeah.
I would not let anything happen which made people unsafe, regardless of any decision taken. My priority is to make sure people are safe.
That's all I needed to know. Thank you.
Mayor, could I just clarify for a moment? Sorry to butt in, but the second and third line of the motion, and I'll read it out just for clarity. It says, calls on the council to return to providing a full service of hours at day centres, pending an extensive review. That's what it actually says, to save any misunderstanding. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you for
Madam Mayor,
reminding.
can I just clarify? I'm not disagreeing with Councillor Mann on what he is saying. All I'm trying to find out from, I think, if we opened up against council advice and against our own risk assessments, where would we stand? And I wouldn't want to vote for something that may put anyone at risk, no matter who.
Okay, thank you both. Councillor Bob Owen, please.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, clearly this is very emotive. It's certainly not political. And there's families, I'm sure that all 73 councillors across the whole borough would have had some kind of contact on this, whether it be, you know, from, you know, the individuals' families, even carers as well, who could be employed carers or, you know, family carers. And they're struggling. My question really is, I think that from where we are, can we move forward without going the whole log, if it makes sense? So you know, can we increase at all in terms of getting you know, getting these hours, you know, where people just talk about 5 days down to 3 hours. You know, could we go up from 3 hours from 5 days now to 1 day and things like that? Can we increase at all? Now, I know this will be a lot of work to look at the risk assessments and whatever else, but it would help a little bit in taking the pressure off, you know, the various families and whatever. And the other thing is, when Councillor Mann was talking about his motion earlier, and then Councillor Johnson coming in on about breaking regulations and stuff, Councillor Mann mentioned that some councils are doing more. So where are the regulations set? Are we below the regulations? Can we come up a bit? Or are there indeed councils doing technically breaking the, you know, the regulations? So it's clearly very emotive, and it's very time consuming. It's hard work for the staff, and I respect all of that. And everybody out there in the health service, such as Carol just talking, fabulous, everything that's going on. But if we could just increase it a little bit within the regulations, that may, you know, would that help? Well, it certainly would help, but could we do it? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. Mr. Street, please.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Owen. Your point is spot on, but be reassured, we are doing that every day, every week. As Councillor Cook mentioned, we're currently providing somewhere in the region of 1,570 hours a week. It hasn't always been that case. That is an increase on what we've done through the pandemic, and we will get that figure up as quickly and as safely as we possibly can. We are impacted on occasions by staffing. We're no different to any other part of the public sector. People self-isolating and becoming unwell is impacting on our staffing levels. But be reassured, we want to get that figure up as quickly as we possibly can, but we want to do that in a way which is safe. As far as the other authorities are concerned, I can't comment on those. I've seen a list of the authorities. I'm aware of no local authority that has opened all its day centres up and gone back to normal. The list that I looked at, 21 of the 22 were in a very similar position to us, and there's one local authority that hasn't opened any day centre provision at all back up. But be reassured, we're doing all we can to increase the capacity.
Thank you, Mr. Street.
Thank you.
Councillor Charlotte Bishop, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can I also add my thanks for all the extra work you're doing on the COVID wards? I can't imagine the harrowing situations you're going through at the moment. 2 points, really. Can I ask what further efforts on consultation with service users and families have been put in place? I remember reading in the newspaper that further consultation was going to take place, yet nobody so far has come forward with what the families and the service users want. And secondly, the split days given to service users, could consultation be put in place with the service users and their families to see if merging these two half days into one day may benefit them more than 2 half days, say, for example? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bishop. Does Mr. Street or Councillor Cook want to answer those points?
Thank you, Councillor Bishop. Certainly, as far as the amalgamation and half days into full days, I mean, if there are particular families, we can look at that. I know Jo's on the call and she's already done that. We can be restrained on occasions by staffing levels and what we've got available. As I said, we're not going out of our way here to be difficult. We want to meet people's needs. Sorry, I don't recall the first part of your question. Oh, it's the consultation. Sorry, just come back to me. Thank you. Yeah, I think we committed in the scrutiny report that you saw a couple of weeks ago that we would do a much more revised and thorough consultation exercise. And the other thing we want to do that is to drive that forward using Caerphilly People's First, so it's independent of the local authority. That is something that we want to do now with some pace, but as you can imagine, we need to dig ourselves out of the current difficulties beforehand.
Thank you.
Thank you both. I haven't got any other hands showing.
Sorry, Mayor. I've had my hand up for the last time.
I'm afraid to disagree with you, Councillor Priest. Your hand has not been showing on my screen, but I will. I will bring you.
We were screening, madam.
I will bring you in. I will bring you in, Councillor Priest. Thank you.
Fine, thank you. Yeah, I listened to all the debate, and I hope everyone realised that we are talking about our residents, clients. I've had numerous residents come to me on every subject that has been mentioned here tonight. And the only thing I could say to them at the end of it was, we do everything we possibly can to protect our residents. We've had instances since the pandemic started where it hasn't been taken 100%, and we've all seen the results. I shan't go into detail on that. So all I am saying is, and I'm sure Mr. Street would support me as Mr. Cook would, Councillor Cook. We do everything we possibly can to accommodate the residents who need the help, plus the carers who need the help. But at the end of the day, we must realise and remember any mistakes that's made, as much as perhaps we'd like to do it, the consequences, and the consequences is work for the undertakers. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Priest. Councillor Sorales, please.
Yeah, just very briefly, Madam Mayor. I've read through and listened to Councillor Mann on this issue, and I've had total reassurance from our officers on this issue that the matter is constantly under review, and I respect
that response entirely from Mr. Street. I therefore see no purpose to this motion at all from Councillor Mann. It serves no purpose. It may be that we can suggest items like this out of goodwill, but in terms of a debate and in terms of trying to change things, it serves no purpose. We have an excellent officer dealing with a very difficult service in an exemplary way, and I congratulate him on it.
Apologies, members. I was just assisting Councillor Hardacre. If you just bear with us a second, he wants to speak. Okay, so we're just giving him some technical support.
Okie dokie, yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Hardacre.
The others have all gone, have they? Yeah, well, I wanted them to listen to this because I need to say I'm probably one of the ones in here that have had experience of this, because for the last 4 years of my wife's life, she used these facilities regularly. And I must admit, they not only help with what anybody that is faced with that decision is not thinking of, not the person that is going into the thing there, but the person that has them every day of the week. That's a little bit of respite for them, and it's essential because there's a lot more in just putting people into day centres. It's the whole family is affected, and really it's going to be difficult, but the quicker we can get back to that particular position, you know, when they're open and people can go to them regularly, the better. It's going to be very, very difficult. I don't know, just thought my qualifications are I've got a master's degree in health and safety and environmental management, and risk assessments and all this is sort of bread and butter for myself. So I can see the problems that are there. That are going to be huge problems, and they're not going to be there for, you know, a month or 2 months. They're going to be there for the next couple of years. And really speaking, we've got a really huge task to bring this back into things, but as quickly as we can. But I would say as quickly and as safely as we can bring this back into being. It would be a godsend for families.
Thank you, Councillor Hardacre. Are there any other speakers? Councillor Mann, it was your motion. Do you want to speak again before I hand over? Oh, I've got Councillor Dix. Your hand appeared quickly and then disappeared. It's reappeared.
Keep me on your toes, I am. Yeah. I was just wondering, obviously, I just listened to the debate now, and I don't feel it's about politics. I think everybody's got their constituents' best interests at heart in this, and also the people who work in the care, providing the care in the centres, and the family members and the people around them who, you know, who's the centre. But I was just, a question sprung into my mind. What are the council doing to ensure the well-being and of the relatives of the carers, to ensure that their mental health is in a good shape going forward? Because if your mental health is not well, looking after somebody after the stressful period is not an ideal situation. You haven't got the tolerance, the compassion might be a bit low. You feel worn out yourself, and you're not yourself. And I just feel it's important that as a council, we need to be having that conversation with the people who provide the bulk of the care day to day, who depend on these centres to have that respite, to have that day where they can go and meet somebody to offload, have that conversation, have a cup of coffee, just do normal things. And I just wondering, what are we putting in place to support them?
Thank you, Councillor Dix. Mr. Street, please.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Dix. I mean, we've got what we call an unpaid carers team. They are there to support carers with in particular difficulty. To be honest, the biggest problem we have as far as carers is identifying them and getting them to come forward and accept that assistance. Certainly if a family contact or an individual contacts us, they're in particular difficulty, whether it relates to their mental health or any other aspect of their life, then we will use those individuals to try and rectify the situation. It's not easy. Capacity doesn't meet demand. I'll be perfectly frank. But you know, we don't leave people high and dry. We will try and help them out in any way we can.
Thank you for that, Mr. Street.
Thank you both. Councillor Harvard, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. You know, I've been listening to this debate, and my heart wants me to vote for it. But my head says no, because we know how dangerous COVID is, and it comes like a thief in the night, and like a lot of people are ignoring the basic rules that are put down. I mean, why on earth are we going through the madness of having crowded stadiums? The trains back and forth from Cardiff on Saturday were crowded and full, everybody standing very close together. You know, I think that unless we do start taking the rules and regulations that are applying to protection in COVID, then we're never going to get away from it. And I really would like to vote for this, and I understand the feelings of the people who want it, but I think that, as David Street has said, you know, we've got, and Shane, we're dealing with a practical problem, and the only way that we can overcome it is by isolating it as much as we can. If people are not being supported at home, then for goodness sake, you know, what are good neighbours for? And I think that Dave Street just said at his last point was that we are supporting people if they can do that, looking for carers, looking for individual carers. We're in a hell of a state at the moment with this COVID thing, and we'll never get rid of it until we burnt it out. Yeah. And that's, to me, that's what's going to make me vote against this motion. Sorry I'm doing that, Colin, because I understand it comes from your heart, and it's coming from my heart too. But I've got to go against it for practical reasons. Sorry.
Thank you, Councillor Harvard. Councillor Mann, do you wish to come back as it's your motion, or are you happy for me to hand over to Mr. Tranter for the vote?
I just for a moment, Mayor, I won't keep you long. As I say, the idea was not to attack people, and that is why I readily agreed to take out certain parts of that original motion. I think we all appreciate the work that has been done by Dave Street, by Joe Williams and the officers, but we also have to recognise, Councillor David Hardacre gave us an idea of what it's like to be looking after someone. Most of us probably don't know that, say, looking after people literally on a daily basis, year in, year out. And it was a response to the concerns by those people that led us to put this motion in. And again, could I again add my thanks to you and all your colleagues, Mayor, for the work that you are doing within the health service with this. I think it's probably time to go to the vote. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Mann, for your kind words, and I will pass them on to my colleagues when I return to the wards. And on that note, I'll hand over to Mr. Tranter for the vote. Thank you.
Thank you, members. We're now going to vote on Councillor Mann's proposal in his notice of motion. The notice of motion is in paragraph 10.9 of the supporting report. So there's a poll just come up in front of you. So can you vote, please, yes, no, or abstain? Thank you very much, members. Again, if any members have any trouble voting, please let me know and I'll record your vote. Thank you.
Mr. Tranter, it's Councillor Priest. I can't get mine up. I voted against. So could you please log that for me, please?
I'll make a note of that, Councillor Priest, by all means.
Thank you.
Yeah. Councillor Hardacre, you are voting against? Thank you. Councillor Hardacre is here in the chamber with me. Any other members having difficulty? No? Okay. So, Madam Mayor, the results for this notice of motion, the vote on the notice of motion, there are 11 votes for, 35 against, and 1 abstention. So the notice of motion is lost on this occasion. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Tranter. We shall move on to item 13, which is another notice of motion. It is for the local energy business campaign. Councillor Mann, could you please present your notice of motion as stated in the agenda for the council's consideration, please? Thank you.
Thank you again, Mayor. Again, quite happy to read this out, but in the interest of time, I'm quite happy if you advise that we don't need to do so on this occasion. I think there'll be far more unanimity in this one than maybe previously. So what is your wish, Mayor?
That's fine, Councillor Mann. I'm happy for you to not read this one if you prefer.
Okay, if I can just spend a couple of minutes speaking to the motion, then thank you. There's much to be gained by generating as much energy as possible, as close as possible to where it is being used. A case in point is installing PV panels on the roof of a building where the power will be used. When electricity is generated in a massive power station, many miles from the consumer, much of the power is lost before it reaches its destination. I've read estimates that, that as little as 30% of the original energy at times gets to the consumer when it's generated centrally. The motion looks to address the obstacles preventing local action on communities and councils such as ours to support generation schemes. It's all to do with the enormous cost of starting up such schemes, which either stop the schemes before they even start or contribute to failure if they do initially get off the ground. And the motion will make it much easier for communities to help themselves in this aspect. It will be a very big step in the right direction. The motion does also recognise the action that this authority has taken in the past towards various sustainability goals. It would take a long time to read all those out, but having been involved in this from the start, could I just mention a couple of things? We've had solar panels for many years, and we substantially reduced the cost of printing several years ago. More recently, the authority has taken initiative with electric vehicles. Much has been done. There is still a long way to go. You will note, people who've read the motion will note that there are something like 264 MPs who actually support this motion. So let's hope there's a reasonable chance of it being passed in Westminster. And I look forward to contributions from the other two group leaders and other members, Mayor. Diolch yn fawr.
Thank you, Councillor Mann. Before we continue with the debate, I will need a seconder for this motion, please.
Second. I think, Madam Mayor, it was agreed that Councillor Marsden and myself would jointly second the motion. Please correct me if I'm wrong.
I believe that is so, Councillor Etheridge, but I believe Councillor Marsden has been called to another meeting.
Could I just say I fully support Councillor Mann in the motion, and I believe Councillor Marsden does as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So that's been now moved and seconded. The debate is in order. So members, if you have any comments, please indicate now using the hands up button. And as usual, please turn your camera and microphone on when called and lower your hand again by clicking on the hands up button when you've finished making your representations. Councillor Pritchard, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. And yes, Councillor Marsden is in support fully of this motion. And it's good to see a cross-party motion gets support. My name was accidentally missed off the motion, but I've been in touch with committee services, so just to say my name should have been on there, and I emailed that on the 3rd, but I'm fully in support of the motion. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Pritchard. Councillor Whitcomb, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to take this opportunity to support this motion. Local generation of electricity is, I consider, an important step to enable local authorities and the communities which we all serve to have a greater say in how electricity is produced and generated. As sustainability forms part of my cabinet portfolio, members should be aware that we are currently, this authority is already making headway in several green energy production projects, which fits in with this agenda. And we are ahead of the other local authorities in the area. Some of the exciting projects we work with are the Cwmaifa Solar Farm, which is a Caerphilly County Borough Council-led project, and we're also working closely with Bute Energy and the Twin Howell Energy Park, which is a wind-generated electricity project. Both these projects offer tremendous advantages: green energy, sustainable employment in working on constructing and then working on the plants afterwards, community development, and an opportunity to develop technical apprenticeships in the green economy. I have been working with both projects, and as there is no current apprenticeship technical course available in Wales for sustainable energy construction and maintenance, both companies have been introduced to 2 FE colleges in the local area with a view to developing technical courses for apprentices in the future. I have no problem to support this motion, Madam Mayor, and I therefore recommend the Chamber that we endorse it. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Whitcomb. Councillor Steve Skivens, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to add my support to the motion. Some of the developments are literally in my backyard, and this is the progress I think that we all need to see. Just one note of caution: I think we do need to ensure that in our drive in this area that we do carry our communities with us, because they will have some concerns, particularly over the planning and the aesthetic look of these new plants. But if the time is taken to explain and do proper public consultation, perhaps better than we have been in other areas, then we will carry the community with us. But yes, I fully support the motion.
Thank you. Councillor Bob Owen, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, similarly to Councillor Pritchard, I don't know if it's possible to add on to this motion. I was away sort of end of October, first week of November, when this seems to have come about, but I'm clearly in support of it. Regulation is going to be an issue, which I'm sure we'll deal with within the council. And as Councillor Skivens has just said, with the planning aspects, etc. But I'm fully in support of it, but I didn't actually get a chance to sign it. So if that could be noted, or perhaps I can be added. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. And Councillor Nigel Dix, please.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I will be supporting this motion, and I'm reassured by the comments of Councillor Whitcomb that the council will be working with the private sector to deliver these the renewable energy sources. I think that's important that we do that. We use their expertise, we do it in partnership, and we make sure that, as Councillor Scriven says, we bring our communities with us. But yeah, I'm happy to support that, because it is sensible to work with the people who have the expertise, who can unlock extra money, and that is the private sector. So I'm happy to support that.
Thank you, Councillor Dix. Are there any other speakers? Councillor Mann, do you want to come back as you presented the motion?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just to thank everyone, including the leader, who unfortunately has had to move on to another meeting. One thing I was reminded of, I believe that Councillor Whitcomb's background, and I thank him for his remarks as well, is Cwm Carn, and for a number of years we were hoping that we were going to get a hydro scheme there, and unfortunately, for whatever reason, that didn't go ahead. And one of the big potentials that some of us feel in this borough is for hydro, and there was a scheme at one time which said there was virtually nowhere in the borough that was a decent prospect for that. So these are the sort of things that we can make progress on. But I thank all members for their support, and I assume that the officers will be taking the actions that is detailed in the motion. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Mann. I'll hand over to Mr. Tranter for the vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Members, you'll see the voting poll in front of you any second now. You are voting on the notice of motion as described in paragraph 5.1 of the supporting report. The poll should be with you now, so if you can please vote. Thank you. So Councillor Hardacre is for the motion. I've recorded that. Anyone else having any difficulties, please? Okay, I don't think that's a good sign. So, Madam Mayor, the motion is carried unanimously, 44 votes for the notice of motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tranter. Item 14 is the Public Services Ombudsman for Wales Annual Letter 2020 to 21. Members, the report before you is for noting. If you have any questions or comments, please turn your camera and microphone on when called and lower your hand by clicking again on the hands up button when you have finished making your representations. Do we have any comments? Oh, do apologise. I should have asked Councillor Gordon to introduce it. Sorry.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First of all, I'd like to thank you as well as other people tonight for all your service you do and your colleagues down in Ystrad. And like I said, you do a grand job, and without you, I don't know where we'd be. I'll give a condensed version. Due to the time we are at the moment, I'll give a condensed introduction. The purpose of this report is to inform Council of the publication of the annual letter for 2020-2021 in respect of the Caerphilly Council by Public Services Ombudsman for Wales. The Public Service Ombudsman for Wales issues an annual letter to each local authority in Wales, which sets out a summary of all complaints received and investigated by his office during 2020 to 21 relating to that authority. The annual letter issued in respect of Caerphilly is attached in Appendix 1 to this report. Members will note that this letter discusses information from a year like no other in recent memory, and as such may not be useful in establishing trends or patterns. However, information received during the remarkable year will bring insights on how public services reacted in the face of unprecedented demand and most difficult of circumstances. With our Chair, I'll take you to that, Mayor, with that, I will take you to the recommendations at 3.1. It is recommended that Council considers and notes the content of the annual letter, reasons for the recommendations to satisfy the Council's statutory duties under the Public Service Ombudsman Wales Act 2019. With that, Mayor,
Thank you, Councillor Gordon, and again, thank you for your comments, and I will take those back to my colleagues. Does anybody wish to ask any questions or say anything on this report? I have no hands raised, so thank you, members. This report is so noted. Moving on to item 15, we have got the membership and sharing arrangements of the Governance and Audit Committee to take effect from May 2022. Councillor Stenner, I understand that you will introduce this report. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
purpose of this report is to ask Council to determine the size and composition of the Governance and Audit Committee to meet the requirements of the Local Government and Elections Act 2021. This will ensure that the correct amount of lay members are appointed to this committee. It should also be noted that the chair of this committee must be a lay member. The recruitment process will be required in the period leading up to May 2022 to appoint suitable individuals to the co-opted lay member positions. The recommendations are shown at 3.1 of the report. To agree that following the elections in May 2022, the revised composition and size of the Governance and Audit Committee will be 12, comprising of 8 elected members and 4 co-opted lay members. To note that the Governance and Audit Committee chair will be one of the co-opted lay members. To agree that a panel of the Governance and Audit Committee comprising of 3 members will undertake the entire recruitment process of the lay members, including shortlisting, interviewing and appointment. I move.
Thank you, Councillor Stenner. Councillor Mike Adams, I understand that you will second.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, very much. As a current member of the Governance and Audit Committee of a number of years as well, we've had some discussions within that committee about the moves forward, and very happy to say that that's been welcomed by all the current members, and happy to second this proposal.
Thank you, Councillor Adams. Having been moved and seconded, the debate is now in order. Members, if you have any comments, please indicate now using the hands up button. Please turn your camera and microphone on when called and lower your hand by clicking again on the hands up button when you are finished making your representations. Thank you. I'll try again. I've got no hands showing, so this is your final call if you want to say something or ask any questions before I hand over to Mr. Tranter. Okay, there are no hands showing, so Mr. Tranter, will you please take us to the vote? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Members will be voting this time on changes to the Governance and Audit Committee. The recommendations are there before you in paragraph 3. A poll will come before you, and there it is. If you could vote, please, and I will give the results of that as soon as possible. Members having any difficulty, please raise your voice and I'll make a note of those changes. Councillor Hardacre? Okay, thank you, Councillor Hardacre.
Worrying about missing the anthem, Chair. Mayor, sorry.
Okay, members having any difficulties? No? If that's the case, Madam Mayor, the recommendations in the report are carried, 39 for, no one against and 1 abstention. So the recommendations in the report are carried. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tranter. Item 16, it's to note the following report, which was considered as an urgent item by Cabinet. It's the purchase of land at Groveside Road, Oakdale, Blackwood for an alternative allotment provision. Members, it is a requirement of the Constitution that any urgent item presented to Cabinet must be reported for noting to Council. The report and reasons for urgency and the decision of Cabinet are therefore noted in the covering report. So noted. Okay. So that is, we've now reached the conclusion of the meeting, members. I would like to thank everyone for attending this evening's meeting of Council. And as this is the last meeting of Council before Christmas, and although it's very early, I can wish everybody a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. I now declare the meeting closed and you may now hang up. Thank you,
Thank you, Mayor.
And good evening.
And the same to you, Mayor. And let's hope
Thank
it
you,
is
Mayor.
a good